In today's horror retrospective, what happens when you mix zombie horror, slapstick comedy, and a whole lot of blood? You get one of the goriest films of all time. Today, we're looking at the zombie masterpiece, During the 1980s, an unknown filmmaker called Peter Jackson was trying to make a name for himself in the world of cinema. He had spent the better part of 4 years making a movie called Bad Taste, a movie about aliens who invade a small town in New Zealand where they harvest humans for their intergalactic fast food franchise, which, just by going by that alone, is an insane concept to start with. The movie became a cult hit, and Jackson was on his way to making his career in cinema. After his next movie was finished, Meet the Feebles, a puppet-based acid fever of a movie, Jackson wanted to push the boundaries of gore and comedy, but even he didn't know how gory his next movie was going to be. For those who haven't seen Braindead, here's a quick rundown of the plot. Set in 1957 New Zealand, the film follows Lionel Cosgrove, a timid young man with an overbearing mother, Vera. When Vera gets bitten by a Sumatran rat monkey at the zoo, things take a horrifying turn. She transforms into a grotesque zombie, and Lionel desperately tries to keep her hidden while dealing with his blossoming romance with Paquita. But as the infection spreads, Lionel finds himself in the middle of a full-blown undead massacre, culminating in possibly the most gloriously over-the-top finale in horror history. Braindead filmed in Peter Jackson's home country New Zealand, primarily in and around Wellington. The shoot lasted for 11 weeks. Many of Braindead's most iconic scenes were filmed on elaborate sets and summer locations down in Wellington. Lionel's house, for example, where most of the movie's chaos unfolds, was a detailed set built specifically for the film. The design was intentionally old-fashioned and claustrophobic, making the final act bloodbath feel even more overwhelming. Some of the outdoor sequences were filmed at real locations, including the Wellington Zoo, where Vera, Lionel's mother, gets bitten by the rat monkey. Unlike other horror movies of the time, Braindead made a deliberate choice to be bright and colourful. There are a number of different assumptions about why this was done. Some people say that this was done due to the small budget and filming in daylight would help them. But some have also suggested that this was done to mimic the soap opera and sitcom look of the 1980s. Speaking of its budget, Braindead had a relatively small budget of $3 million New Zealand dollars, but Jackson and his team stretched every dollar to create a film that looks far more expensive than it actually was. For example, the movie was shot on Super 16mm instead of the usual 35. This was done so that more of the budget could be spent on the special effects. Now, of course, we can't talk about Braindead without diving into the special effects. The movie is an absolute showcase for practical gore, featuring dismemberments, exploding heads, rotting flesh, and of course, the now legendary lawnmower scene. Jackson worked closely with special effects artist Rashida Taylorâ, who would later become a key figure at Weta Workshop, the effects company behind Jackson's future Oscar-winning series The Lord of the Rings. Over 300 litres of fake blood were used in the film, just for the lawnmower scene alone, and overall, the production reportedly went through several thousand litres of the red stuff. In fact, for one sequence, the blood was pumped through fire hoses to create high-pressure sprays. If you've seen this movie, you know exactly which scene I'm talking about. The most infamous sequence in the movie, the Lawnmower Massacre, was a massive undertaking for the special effects team. The scene took weeks to shoot because of the sheer amount of prosthetics, fake limbs, and blood effects needed. Actors playing zombies had to wear thick layers of latex, and many of them spent hours covered in sticky, syrupy fake blood. Timothy Balm, who plays Lionel, later said that after filming, he'd go home with dried blood stuck to his skin for days. At one point, Jackson reportedly ran out of fake blood and had to order more to be made overnight. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly why they ran out of the red stuff. The sequence required dozens of stunt performers, and the lawnmower prop itself had to be carefully rigged so that it would appear functional without actually injuring anyone. The scene also used puppeteered limbs, hydraulic blood sprays, and a whole lot of creativity to make the carnage feel as visceral as possible. When Braindead hit cinemas in 1992, it had a mixed reception. Some critics were put off by the excessive gore, while others praised the dark humour and outrageous special effects. In New Zealand, it was actually a modest success, where it made more money per screen than that year's biggest movie, Batman Returns. But in the US, where it was renamed Dead Alive because of another film with rights to the practically identical title, Braindead, it didn't help that the movie was censored. The theatrical release had a runtime of 85 minutes, a full 12 minutes shorter than the uncut version. This made a lot of people confused, especially since the United Kingdom released the movie fully uncut, as the ratings board found the film's gory content so light-hearted and comical that there was even consideration on giving the film a 15 certificate. Over time, though, it has gained a cult following through home video and late-night screenings. Today, it's recognised as one of the greatest horror comedies ever made. So how did Braindead influence cinema? Well, for one, it solidified Peter Jackson as a master of practical effects and visual storytelling. It also paved the way for other splatter films and helped redefine horror comedy. Following in the footsteps of Evil Dead 2, Braindead laid the groundwork for future zombie comedies like Idle Hands and the brilliant zombie homage Shaun of the Dead. Whether you love it for its insane gore, its absurd humour, or its groundbreaking for the time practical effects, Braindead is a must-watch for any horror fan. It's the kind of film that reminds us that sometimes the best horror movies aren't the ones that take themselves too seriously. For myself, it's in the top 3 zombie movies of all time, as the lawnmower sequence is just faultless. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future horror retrospectives. Let us know down below if you've seen this and what you think of it. Remember, stay critical, stay scared.